on to another story that has been very difficult to watch play out. I've been reading about this, watching a lot of the news reports. I'm sure you've seen it, this massacre in Mexico. This week, 9 Americans, including 3 moms and exactly 6 children near the U.S.-Mexico border. It's been one of the most shocking things I've ever seen reported. Mexican authorities are still scrambling to find who ambushed and murdered these babies and their mothers. For the latest on this, Angelica Carrillo from our affiliate KOLD in Tucson, Arizona. Angelica, what is the latest? I saw a report that at least one individual was in custody or was being questioned.
That's right, Tamron. So that suspect was arrested yesterday, but Mexican authorities now say that that person not believed to be connected with this ambush at all. That person was found with several assault rifles, as well as a couple of hostages. But right now, authorities are still looking for the killers that brutally murdered 9 Americans. As you mentioned, 3 moms, 6 children. Today, reality starts to set in for a lot of these families. The first funerals are set to happen a little bit later today in La Mora, Mexico. That's about 5 hours south here in Tucson. And I've learned today that one of the girls who was shot, 9-year-old, in the wrist, she was actually released from the hospital yesterday and has been sent back to Mexico so that she can attend her mother's funeral to get a little bit of closure in what has really just been a heartbreaking story that we've been covering here for several days. As you mentioned, they're still trying to find the killers. The Mexican police and president have set up a sort of a commission to try to find these killers, trying to figure out if this was a case of mistaken identity or if this family was targeted in some way.
Angelica, 13-year-old Devin Langford is one of the children who was there. He helped save his siblings. How was he able to get to help and get people back to that scene?
You know, that's been the story out of this tragic story, this hero that emerged, a 13-year-old boy. He walked for 14 miles to try to get help. This is a very desolate area, so police, they weren't around. So we are told that from family members that 13-year-old boy actually walked back to his hometown 14 miles and hid some of his siblings, 6 of them, under bushes to try to hide them so that they wouldn't be targeted again. And then in that whole process, as he left, his 9-year-old sister went to go try to get help as well, and she actually ended up getting lost for a couple of hours. So he goes to get help, she goes to get help, and in the process she gets lost. And it wasn't until, you know, about 5-6 hours that these kids, 5 of them had been shot, were able to get any sort of medical attention. And one of the first things that little girl said was, we need to get back, we need to help, you know, my siblings.
Angelica, what can you tell us about the family's life there? How long had they lived in the area? You mentioned it was rural. What were their roots there?
So the LeBarons have been in that area for decades. They've been there since the 1800s. They call themselves Mormons, but they're actually sort of a branch off of the traditional Latter-day Saints. So they've been there for a few years, and these families that were killed are related to that family, and they've had sort of there's been some questions on if they were targeted. They've had some run-ins with the cartels before. About 10 years ago, 2 members of the LeBarons were actually killed by the cartels, and some of them have been outspoken on the violence in that area. But they have a lot of land. They farm pecans, apples, cheese. They're kind of known for that. But this has just been really shocking for that community. I'm actually from Douglas, the closest border community to cross into Mexico. And today we're learning that it's possible that violence has been linked to some violence that happened just hours earlier. So, you know, I speak with my grandfather, and he says, you know, people are not crossing into Mexico because they're afraid. This is an everyday way of life for people to cross into those border communities, but knowing that it's so violent down there, they're just a little bit concerned.
So real quick, Angelica, that area, you mentioned a relative saying that people are afraid to go in and out. Is that one of the hotbed areas of violence that we've talked so much about?
So in recent months, there's been an ongoing turf war between 2 different cartels, and so that's what they're battling for right now. Agua Prieta is directly south of Douglas, Arizona, and so that there has been violence there in recent months. Most recently, Monday morning, before this ambush on that family, which is about 70 miles south of there. So it's really increasingly becoming more dangerous. And I know myself and my family, we've, in the last couple of weeks, in the last couple of months, we've stopped going, and that's been the same story for a lot of these folks that travel to the U.S. or to Mexico for their everyday life.
Angelica, thank you so much. We will keep following this story.